The sky over Earth had never been so silent. Not a whisper of wind, not a bird's cry. Yet, for those who knew how to look, the heavens trembled with a presence no human had ever seen. Through telescopes, satellites, and the hurried eyes of astronomers around the globe, an impossible fleet shimmered into view, ships of alien design, floating like polished shards of black crystal against Jupiter's storm-racked clouds. They had come before, countless times, to countless worlds. Each civilization they encountered vanished within days, erased, conquered, or abandoned, left as sterile monuments to their failures. The alien scouts were not violent in the human sense. They were precise, calculated, cold. Every species they deemed unworthy had been eliminated efficiently, logically, and yet Earth remained untouched. That fact alone should have been relief. It was not. On the observation deck of the International Space Coalition station, scientists gathered around screens displaying the incoming ships. Dr. Marcus Hall, an astrophysicist who had spent his life scanning the cosmos for anomalies, rubbed his eyes as the images flickered. "It's impossible," he muttered. "Nothing in the data suggests they should exist. Their mass, their energy signature. It shouldn't be possible for matter to behave like that. It's like they're bending reality." Beside him, Lieutenant Amara Voss clenched her fists around the console. She was a military strategist, trained to think in terms of offense and defense, yet the instinctive unease in her gut told her logic alone would not suffice. "We need to know what they want," she said quietly, almost to herself. "Every record from previous encounters shows they've never left a species alive long enough to negotiate." From orbit, Earth looked tranquil, a blue marble of oceans and continents, oblivious to the scrutiny above. Across the globe, people went about their lives, unaware that humanity's fate was under observation. Satellites that had spent decades orbiting silently were struck by waves of energy that disabled their circuits in a blink. Communications went dark. Space telescopes sputtered, their instruments blacking out as if the universe itself had pulled the plug. The aliens' arrival was not announced. It was imposed, an intrusion leaving no room for warning or preparation. Yet, even in their silence, the aliens' presence radiated intelligence. Their ships moved with a precision that seemed almost sentient, orbiting Jupiter in perfect geometric patterns. No natural law known to humanity could explain their formations. When the waves of energy pulsed across the solar system, the ships did not scatter. They did not attack indiscriminately. They paused, observing, calculating, waiting. Humanity's first instinct was fear, as it always had been. Governments convened emergency councils. Scientists devised contingency plans. Militaries readied weapons that they knew were futile against forces bending physics itself. Still, no one could act, because the aliens' next move was unpredictable. They were not merely testing humanity's strength. They were testing something subtler, something beyond brute force. On the ground, panic whispered through the streets. Some fled to shelters, others attempted to contact loved ones, and countless people simply stared at the skies in silent awe. Every news feed repeated the same images, the dark glimmer of alien hulls, floating in orbit, silent and impenetrable. Social media became a chorus of speculation and fear. Conspiracy theorists shouted about invasion and apocalypse. Scientists begged for patience, insisting that observation was humanity's best weapon. But deep down, everyone felt the same thing. They were being measured. And then, for reasons no human mind could fathom, the ships pulsed again, but differently this time. The energy wave swept across Earth, and yet nothing died. Satellites rebooted, systems flickered back to life, and communications returned. It was not mercy. It was a test. The aliens had noticed something in humanity, something the previous species lacked. They paused because humans had survived. Dr. Hall leaned closer to the console, eyes wide. They're studying us. They've never done this before. Not a single record indicates hesitation. Every species fell instantly. And we didn't. His voice trembled, caught between awe and terror. We survived their first strike. Somehow, we survived. Lieutenant Voss exhaled slowly, her military training screaming at her to prepare for the worst, yet some part of her recognized the significance. Humans were unpredictable, imperfect, fragile, and yet that imperfection might be exactly what made them remarkable. The aliens, for the first time in history, were uncertain, and in uncertainty lay opportunity. Somewhere deep inside Jupiter's orbit, the alien fleet pulsed again, its intentions inscrutable, its gaze unblinking. Humanity had passed the first test, though none knew what the rules were, or what the consequences might be. The world watched, held its breath, and waited. For once, being human might be enough. But whether it would be enough to survive what came next, nobody could say. Humanity had survived the first strike. For a brief moment, the world exhaled, but no one dared to celebrate. The alien fleet still hovered in orbit, silent and impervious, as though the very sky had become a cage. On the International Space Coalition station, screens displayed the ship's movements, subtle pulses of energy rippling across Jupiter's storms, each one precise, deliberate. Dr. Marcus Hall and Lieutenant Amara Voss studied the patterns, desperate for a clue. "They're testing us," Hall said again, though his voice carried both awe and fear. "Every species we've studied was eliminated instantly. We didn't fail. Not yet. But what do they want us to do?" Voss clenched her fists. "It's not about what they want. It's about what they expect. The other species failed because they couldn't adapt. Humans, maybe that's why we're still here." Her gaze was fixed on the alien fleet, each ship an impossible geometric marvel, rotating and shifting in ways that defied physics. "Whatever comes next, it's not going to be simple." And it wasn't. The alien ships emitted a new pulse, wider, stronger, that blanketed the planet in a shimmering field of energy. This time, it didn't disable satellites. It projected a holographic arena across the sky, visible from every corner of the Earth. Within the light, floating symbols, grids, and shapes formed patterns no human had ever seen. The aliens had created a challenge, a simulation designed to measure every species' capability to adapt, to survive, to think differently. Governments scrambled to respond. Scientists and military leaders convened emergency councils, analyzing the symbols, debating the rules. The world realized that this test was not about strength, not about firepower. It was about ingenuity, intuition, unpredictability, the very traits that had allowed humans to survive the first strike. Across the globe, other species had already begun their attempts. Reports arrived through hastily reactivated communication lines. The Crothians, a species of crystalline beings, tried to follow the geometric instructions with perfect precision, calculating every move with mathematical certainty. Yet, one misalignment, too small to notice, caused their simulation to collapse. They had failed. The Zerth, a hive-mind species, reacted differently. Their psychic network synchronized every individual's thoughts, attempting flawless coordination. But the aliens' test was adaptive, reshaping itself in response to every decision. The Zerth could not predict the changes fast enough. Their hive collapsed in disarray, leaving only the faintest echo of consciousness behind. Humans, meanwhile, struggled. Engineers, programmers, and ordinary civilians stared at the alien projections, unsure how to proceed. No one had the complete understanding required to solve it outright. Some proposed following strict calculations. Others argued for trial and error. Arguments erupted. Debates flared. Mistakes were frequent. Confusion rampant. And yet, every misstep led to a new insight, a new approach. Unlike the other species, humans did not fail spectacularly. Humans improvised. Humans adapted. On a small console in a cramped lab, a teenage engineer named Lena Patel traced her finger along the floating symbols, eyes narrowing. She wasn't the fastest thinker, nor the most skilled mathematician, but she noticed something others missed. A subtle repetition in the alien pattern, a rhythm that suggested not logic, but expectation. While others calculated outcomes, she guessed, experimented, and adjusted. A failed attempt was not an end. It was information. The aliens observed. Their ships hovered in perfect formation, watching every reaction, every misstep. They had never encountered a species capable of converting failure into advantage. Other species had only rigid logic, flawless precision, or raw instinct. Humans combined them all in unpredictable ways. One error could become a breakthrough. One hesitation could become an advantage. As Lena aligned a series of floating shapes, a sudden ripple of understanding passed through her mind. The pattern was not static. It was a mirror of human thought, responding to initiative rather than correctness. When she tried something unconventional, something no algorithm could predict, the alien symbols shifted in real time, revealing a path forward. She called out to the team, directing them to follow her lead. Slowly, the collective effort of humanity began to progress where others had collapsed. Hall watched, astonished. They're learning from us, he whispered. Or maybe, they're realizing they can't predict us. Voss's hands gripped the edge of the console. Whatever it is, we're breaking their rules simply by thinking differently. That's the human advantage. They can't calculate what we'll do next. The simulation continued, but humanity was no longer merely reacting. They were improvising, iterating, adapting with each new shift the aliens imposed. Errors became experiments. Confusion became insight. Other species had been eliminated because they assumed perfection was survival. Humans survived because imperfection could be transformed into power. And the aliens, for the first time in their history of conquest, hesitated. The alien simulation stretched across the skies like a second sun, pulsating with impossible geometry. Below, on Earth, every species capable of communication or thought struggled to survive the test, and the results were devastating. One by one, the others fell, not because they lacked intelligence, strength, or strategy, but because they lacked the one trait the aliens could not measure: adaptability born of imperfection. The Crothians, crystalline beings whose minds calculated every variable to exactitude, moved first. Their precision was unmatched. Their every motion followed the logic of the alien symbols. But perfection was their prison. When the simulation shifted unexpectedly, as the aliens had designed it to do, the Crothians froze. Their rigid calculations could not account for the anomalies. Their flawless attempt collapsed into shattered glass, both literally and figuratively, as the alien energy reshaped the environment around them. Every fragment fell silent. The Crothians were gone. Next were the Zerth, a hive-mind species with psychic connections that spanned continents. They anticipated every move of every other species, synchronizing actions with terrifying efficiency. Their unity should have guaranteed victory. Instead, it became their downfall. The aliens' test adapted faster than their network could respond, introducing subtle but crucial irregularities. Hesitation rippled through the hive, and indecision spread like a virus. When the Zerth attempted to recalibrate, the simulation had already shifted again. Their psychic cohesion fractured, leaving only disjointed signals in the air. One by one, the Zerth ceased to exist as a coordinated force. Humans, watching the failures of the others, felt a grim sense of clarity. The simulations were designed to punish rigidity, to reveal the limits of predictability. The aliens did not care about intelligence, or strength, or speed. They cared about something deeper, the ability to react, adapt, and turn uncertainty into opportunity. Inside a laboratory in Mumbai, Lena Patel studied the shifting holograms with a mixture of frustration and fascination. Every human error, every misstep, was a clue. The alien test did not punish mistakes. It rewarded insight gained through trial. A misaligned shape revealed a hidden sequence. An incorrect assumption forced a new perspective. Unlike the other species, humans were not paralyzed by the unknown. They improvised, and in improvisation, they advanced. Dr. Marcus Hall paced near the console, watching as reports came in from every continent. Cities with significant human populations were seeing coordinated experimentation. Engineers, students, and ordinary citizens attempting to make sense of the alien projections. Some failed, some succeeded, but no failure was final. Each attempt generated data that informed the next. Collective learning was humanity's secret weapon. Meanwhile, the alien fleet hovered in orbit, their hulls glinting against the orange storms of Jupiter. For the first time, their energy pulses showed hesitation. They analyzed, recalculated, and waited, uncertain how to respond to a species that thrived in chaos. Every other civilization they had conquered before had acted predictably. Humans did not. The Martians, descendants of a failed colony who had returned to Earth, tried brute force. They attempted to alter the simulation physically, sending robotic probes to manipulate the floating shapes. The aliens instantly countered, adapting the environment faster than the probes could move. Martian efforts failed spectacularly, their machines immobilized and their operators stunned. The lesson was clear. Rigid control was useless. Even the technologically advanced Ethrons, a species of beings composed of semi-liquid metallic forms, succumbed. Their bodies could morph to manipulate the environment with astonishing speed, yet the aliens' shifting parameters outpaced them. When they tried to adapt too slowly, the simulation reacted, collapsing the structures they were manipulating. The Ethrons' liquid forms fragmented, dissipating into the void, leaving no trace of their once fluid intelligence. Humans, by contrast, treated failure differently. A team of teenagers in Nairobi tried one approach, failed spectacularly, laughed, and tried again. In Berlin, a pair of retired engineers used their decades of experience to guess at sequences the aliens did not expect. In Sydney, children turned their mistakes into patterns, discovering shortcuts and solutions the adults had overlooked. Everywhere, humans were learning not from what worked perfectly, but from what failed, and they were thriving because of it. Lena leaned back from her console, her fingers trembling with exhilaration. "The others are falling because they assumed perfection equals survival," she said. "We're still here because imperfection is ours to exploit. Every mistake is a step forward." Dr. Hall nodded grimly. The aliens didn't account for resilience. They didn't account for creativity. They expected predictability, and they found the exact opposite. Above Jupiter, the alien fleet pulsed once more, observing, calculating, but uncertainty had entered their equation. For the first time in recorded history, a species had defied their expectation. Humanity was still alive. Humanity was learning. And while the test was far from over, one truth was undeniable. When all others failed, humans survived. By the time the fourth day of the alien simulation arrived, most species had already been eliminated. Reports from orbit and ground stations confirmed it. The Crothians, the Zerth, the Martians, the Ethrans, all gone, their attempts ending in spectacular failure. Humanity remained, scattered across continents, improvising, learning, surviving. And for the first time, the aliens' behavior suggested they were unsettled. In a small lab on the outskirts of Mumbai, Lena Patel stared at the ever-shifting symbols projected into the air. Lines intersected in impossible angles, geometric shapes warped and rotated faster than anyone could follow. Every human attempt to solve it produced new patterns, and every error revealed hidden sequences the aliens had embedded in their test. Lena had a realization. The simulation was not static. It adapted in real time to the observer's behavior. "It's learning from us," Lena said aloud, though she barely needed to speak. Her voice was calm, her focus absolute. "Not just the simulation. It's the aliens. They expected us to follow rules, to calculate outcomes like every other species. But we don't. We improvise. And that unpredictability, it's destabilizing them." Dr. Marcus Hall watched from behind her. "Unbelievable. Every other species failed because they assumed perfection equaled survival. We're surviving because imperfection is a tool. Every failure is feedback, every mistake a clue. We're teaching the simulation how to respond, and it can't keep up." Lena's hands danced over the console, tracing shapes, testing sequences, adjusting parameters based on intuition rather than calculation. Her approach was almost instinctual, guessing, observing, adapting, each failed attempt refining the next. She realized something the others had not. The aliens could anticipate precision, but they could not anticipate creativity. They could calculate logic, but they could not predict ingenuity born from trial and error. Across the globe, humanity was beginning to coalesce into an improvised network. Cities shared observations through hastily restored communication channels. Schools became makeshift labs. Individuals working independently were forming an unspoken collective, their combined mistakes and experiments building a cumulative advantage the aliens had never accounted for. In Berlin, 2 retired engineers had discovered a subtle irregularity in the simulation's rotating shapes. By deliberately misaligning one pattern, they triggered a cascade of transformations that revealed an entire sequence previously hidden. In Nairobi, teenagers experimenting with random variations had stumbled upon a shortcut that cut an entire stage of the simulation in half. Every corner of the planet contributed to the growing human understanding, a global improvisation unmatched by any other species. Meanwhile, the alien fleet remained in orbit, pulsing, observing, adjusting, but uncertainty had entered their calculations. Every human action was a variable they could not fully predict. Unlike the rigid Crothians or the hive-minded Zerth, humans could turn chaos into insight. Every error became an experiment. Every hesitation became an advantage. Lena leaned back, eyes narrowing. She noticed a subtle rhythm in the alien patterns, something almost imperceptible, a pulse that corresponded not to logic, but to expectation. The aliens expected humans to approach the simulation systematically, like other species. But humans approached it unpredictably. Lena realized she could exploit that expectation, guiding humanity's collective improvisation in a direction the aliens had not anticipated. She called out instructions to the global network, directing teams to explore variations that seemed nonsensical at first. Engineers in Tokyo, students in São Paulo, and hobbyists in Toronto followed her lead. One after another, the alien symbols shifted, revealing new pathways through the simulation. The humans who had been improvising independently were now advancing together, connected not by direct communication, but by the shared understanding Lena had sparked. Dr. Hall exhaled slowly, a mixture of awe and relief washing over him. "They can't control us. They can't predict us. We're doing what no species ever could, learning from failure, adapting instantly, creating solutions they didn't even know were possible. Lieutenant Voss stood beside him, silent but focused. The truth was clear. Survival was not about precision, strength, or even intelligence alone. Survival was about adaptability, creativity, and the courage to act when the outcome was uncertain. Humanity had discovered its edge, and that edge was something no alien algorithm, no matter how advanced, could fully anticipate. Somewhere in orbit, the alien fleet pulsed again, observing the global human effort. For the first time in their history of conquest, hesitation radiated from them. Humanity had not only survived their test, they had redefined it. And while the simulation continued, it was clear, the humans were no longer merely participants. They were innovators, improvisers, and the anomaly the aliens could not control. Lena's eyes gleamed with quiet determination. "We're not just surviving," she whispered. "We're showing them what humans can do when every expectation is against us. And that is our advantage." In every city, every lab, every household where humans worked, the same principle applied. Imperfection, when embraced and understood, became power. Errors became insight. Hesitation became strategy. And across the planet, humanity's edge grew stronger with every passing moment. The aliens had created the test, but they could not dictate its outcome. Humanity would decide the next move. And for the first time, the universe had a species that could not be predicted, controlled, or eliminated. The alien simulation had stretched for days, a shifting labyrinth of impossible geometry and pulsing energy that no species had ever endured. From orbit, the fleet hovered in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming against Jupiter's swirling storms. Every other civilization had fallen, leaving humanity alone on the field of the ultimate test. And yet, humans were not merely surviving, they were advancing. Across the globe, improvised labs, classrooms, and homes became the nerve centers of humanity's effort. Teenagers in Nairobi, engineers in Berlin, hobbyists in Tokyo, and retired scientists in Sao Paulo worked in tandem without ever meeting, connected by intuition, observation, and shared insight. Every failed experiment was a lesson. Every error became a stepping stone. Where other species had seen failure as the end, humans saw opportunity. Lena Patel, still at her console in Mumbai, observed the global patterns with a calm, focused intensity. The alien symbols were shifting faster now, responding to humanity's improvisation, but Lena had discovered a hidden rhythm in their chaos. The fleet expected humans to act logically, systematically, but humans acted unpredictably. And unpredictability, she realized, was impossible to calculate. "Every move they make, we adapt," Lena murmured. "Every sequence they control, we bend. Every rule they impose, we break." Her fingers danced across the console, testing a new combination of movements that no other species could have anticipated. The symbols responded immediately, reshaping themselves into a path that led forward. Dr. Marcus Hall leaned over her shoulder, eyes wide. This is it. The aliens expected compliance. They expected failure. But they never accounted for creativity, for adaptability. They didn't expect resilience. Humanity is rewriting the simulation. On a global scale, humans had begun to anticipate the alien patterns before the aliens themselves could impose them. Lena's insight spread like wildfire through the improvised network. Engineers in New York replicated her approach, while students in Cape Town tested variations. Each independent solution fed back into the global effort, compounding the advantage. Humanity's progress was no longer reactive. It was generative. They were creating new pathways through the simulation that the aliens could not predict. The alien fleet pulsed in response, the energy vibrations growing irregular. For the first time, hesitation emanated from the ships, uncertainty radiating from a species that had never faced unpredictability before. The aliens had never encountered a civilization capable of turning chaos into advantage. Their calculations, their vast intelligence, could not account for creativity and resilience working in harmony. In Berlin, two retired engineers shouted in triumph as a sequence that had eluded them for hours finally aligned, opening a new stage of the simulation. In Nairobi, teenagers celebrated as their random experiments revealed shortcuts that seemed impossible. In Mumbai, Lena guided a coordinated series of improvisations that connected each breakthrough into a global strategy. Humanity was not just surviving, they were mastering the test in a way that no alien had ever imagined. Lieutenant Amara Voss, observing the global progress from the Space Coalition station, clenched her fists in disbelief. They can't predict us. They can't control us. We're doing what no species ever could, learning from failure, adapting instantly, creating solutions they didn't even know were possible. As the final stage of the simulation approached, the alien ships pulsed once more, scanning, calculating, observing. But it was futile. Humanity had reached a point the aliens could not anticipate. They had transformed errors into insights, hesitation into strategy, confusion into coordinated improvisation. They were no longer reacting to the simulation. They were shaping it. Lena traced the last sequence with steady hands, aligning shapes that had previously been impossible to connect. As the symbols clicked into place, a pulse of energy swept across Earth, brighter and warmer than any before. Satellites and instruments all over the planet registered the signal, but no systems failed. Instead, the light illuminated humanity's achievement. The simulation had been completed, not perfectly, not without mistakes, but successfully. Dr. Hall exhaled, shaking his head. They tried to eliminate us with logic, with precision, with fear. But they forgot the one thing humans have always had: resilience, creativity, the ability to adapt when everything fails. That is why we survive. The alien fleet, for the first time in recorded history, began to withdraw. Their energy pulses softened, their formation loosened, and slowly they disappeared into the void beyond Jupiter. Humanity had not only survived, they had taught the aliens a lesson. Survival was not about perfection or control. Survival was about adaptation, ingenuity, and the courage to act when the outcome was uncertain. Lena leaned back from her console, exhaustion and exhilaration mixing in equal measure. Across the planet, humanity celebrated cautiously, aware that the test was only the beginning. Yet one truth had become undeniable: when all others failed, humans endured. When all others fell, humans adapted. And in the vast, indifferent universe, that might be the most dangerous and remarkable thing of all. For the first time, the aliens had learned that survival was not predictable. And for the first time, humanity had proven that being human, imperfect, unpredictable, resilient, was enough to triumph against the impossible.